Hey guys, it's me. I'm back, and I think today is a great day for a Q and A. So let's jump right into it. This isn't really a question as much as a comment, but I'm still going to address it. So Bitcoin goes through the roof, and you leave us lol. Yes, Bitcoin has gone through the roof, which has been a very nice Christmas present at the Dayton household. I'm not going to complain about that, but that's not the reason why I have been absent from YouTube. So if you've been following this channel, you might know that I've mentioned before that the reason I do YouTube is all in service of a higher goal. It's all about helping me to make my art and get my art out there. And there are times when I'm going to have to put making the art over doing YouTube. And the last couple of months have been kind of a mix of that, but there has also been kind of a mix of honestly needing a little break from YouTube. So I've been doing it all 2017. I did it almost every week of 2017, and it was good just to take a little bit of break. I was kind of running out of ideas, and I needed to kind of reformulate some new ideas and get a new idea about what I was going to do in 2018. So it's 2018 now. I will start releasing more content. I got some more stuff already in the docket ready to come. So hopefully we'll start seeing those. You'll start seeing those coming up pretty quick. So yeah, over Christmas, I also, most of December and January, I also was working. And so I did want a little bit of a Christmas break. But I've also got some great news. I can't announce it quite yet, but there's some really great stuff coming on the way that I'm going to be able to announce. Hopefully, I don't know when I get to announce it, maybe in the next couple of months. But I hope you stay tuned so you have the chance to be the first ones to hear the news. But that also kept me kind of busy over the last couple of months as well. So anyway, that's kind of my excuse why I haven't been around for a little bit. But now that I'm here, let's do some Q and A, and I'll answer some stale questions. They're still questions. They're kind of old. So hopefully you're still around to get some of these answers. So first one. Hey, I really like the kind of content you make here. I was wondering if you need a college degree to work as a 2D animator in a studio. And I got another one along the same lines. I watched the Q and A, but I don't think I heard you say if you need a degree to work for Disney. So these are two kind of general questions that are just asking about what type of education do you need. Some say to be a 2D animator. The other one says to work for Disney. I want to be very clear. Sometimes people get the impression from my content that I was an animator at Disney. I was not an animator at Disney. I have done animation before, but I did work as a concept artist at Disney Interactive. So I was not a feature animator. But I still think I can answer that question. The main answer to that question is no, you do not need a degree. So there are lots of different jobs where you can only really know if someone is qualified for the job because they have a degree. Because a degree, certain types of work are very difficult to demonstrate your proficiency at the work in a very demonstrable way. And so in those cases, you need a degree to show that you've done a certain amount of work to earn that degree. Animation and concept art is not that type of a field. It's a type of field where all you need is a portfolio. So if you are planning on going into concept art or animation, you should focus on building a portfolio. And that's really what's going to get you hired. I've been on both ends of the hiring. I've hired people. I've been hired. And I can tell you, people really only care what you have in your portfolio. And so if you do want to learn those skills, there are lots of fantastic resources online. There are also schools that can teach you those things, but those things do come at a cost. So the other thing that you need as a potential employee looking for a job as an animator or a concept artist is you also just need to be a interesting, not jerky person. And so that matters too. But really you have to focus on your portfolio. And that's something we could probably discuss at a later time, how you create a portfolio that's gonna get you hired, because just having a portfolio isn't enough. You really need to figure out how to have a portfolio, how to build a portfolio that's going to be good enough, that's a right match for the job that you are looking for. And that can be a really tough thing. But that's something we can talk about at another time. All right, Brandon, how about the iPad Pro and Apple Pen? Did you have the opportunity to try? I am in love with this combo. I haven't tried that yet. I hear a lot of artists really like using it for certain things. I know in particular Ryan Otley uses it he has been using it for doing his layouts lately. So I'll have to ask him more about the process he uses for that. But I'd be interested in trying it out. I don't know if I really want to buy an iPad just to do that. We'll see. All right, next one. Should you not work for a big studio? So this is a common question I get, and it's probably due to the fact that I have my most popular video is why I quit my dream job at Disney, and I kind of gripe about what it's like to work for a big studio. And I've addressed this question in some other videos, but I think it's worthwhile to address here. And it's good for me to kind of like give a balance to this other video I made about why I quit my dream job. So the first thing you should know is that video, I actually wrote the text of that video right after I left Disney. So my feelings were very intense at that point, that like this was the right thing for me to do at that point, was to leave this studio. That being said, working at Disney and working at EA, two large studios, were some of the best experiences of my life. There was some of the best growth I saw as an artist. I mean, if you saw the level of work I was doing when I got at EA, it was not that good. And EA was just this great opportunity just for me to like sit down and learn a lot of fundamentals. And then I feel like Disney just like took me to a whole other level. Just the level of artists that work there were so amazing. And it allowed me to push myself. And the particular type of work that I was doing there was really well suited to refining my sequential storytelling abilities. So the question about should you work for a studio, it's all about what you are trying to accomplish and what you want for your career. If you want to get better as an artist, if you're kind of early in your career, but also, like, if you want to work for a big studio, then, like, absolutely work for a big studio. If that's what your dream is, I think there are some amazing opportunities to be had there. So for me, I want to be telling my own stories, and that's the place that I wanted to get eventually. So it came to a point where I had to do something different than a big studio, but it could be a very good match for you. And it could be a place where you can grow a lot, where you can learn a lot, and where you can become a better artist. I think just working with those other highly talented people is an amazing way to grow as an artist. Next question. Also, what exactly do you mean when you say that Disney encouraged you to work on your own personal stuff? I would imagine working for a big company like that, there's a clause written into your contract that says you can't do any other creative work. That anything you make while you work there belongs to Disney, but I could be wrong about that. I'd be interested to know what that looked like. So that was actually my perception of what it would be to work like for like Disney feature. I remember hearing stories about that, like for example, that Tim Burton, he had come up with the idea for Nightmare Before Christmas while he was working at Disney, and so that when he wanted to make Nightmare Before Christmas, he had to go back to Disney because they owned it. And maybe if you worked for Disney feature, they would be more strict about that. But honestly, they were not very strict about that at Disney Interactive where I was. So that being said, it's not uncommon at all of the game studios I've worked at. You do sign a contract that basically says like you can't take stuff that you create at work and use it for yourself and make money for it. And part of that contract, it's pretty normal that you have basically a page where you have to write down like the names of all the stuff that you're working on or that you have worked on that you own outside of that company. So I put down every time I've started a new game company, I put down a long list. I mean, I've got a document on Google Drive that just has a huge list of all the different story ideas I have. So when I started a company, started a job at a new company, I would just list all those things. And my brother Cameron, who has done a lot of work at games, I should really bring him on here sometime, since he is the creative director on Call of Duty. But he's talked about before that what he'll do is on that list, he'll just put down a bunch of made up things, and just in case he comes up with any other ideas along the way, that he can kind of associate them with those made up things. But anyway, maybe that's a strategy you can use too. But the culture at the studio wasn't really stringent about that. There were lots of people that worked on creative projects. And so when I say Disney, you have to understand that it isn't just some big Disney robot. It's a corporation made up of people. And the attitudes and the culture of those people really determines what is acceptable and not acceptable. And the culture at Disney Interactive, aka Avalanche Software, was very encouraging of doing your personal work. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people did personal work in the office. They would find ways to juggle that around their work, and sometimes they wouldn't, sometimes they would just do it. But that was the culture. There wasn't as much of this really stringent, anything that's creative we own. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have taken a job if that was the case, because I always have stuff that I'm working on my own. All right. Sometimes I don't get reference photos for an idea I have. So how do I bring that idea into a solid form? Well, why don't you get reference photos? I'm really curious as to what is stopping you from looking at reference. If you have access to reference, if you are able to do a Google image search, then you should get reference. I mean, unless you are away from the computer, which sometimes happens, I would always start with reference if I was trying to make something more solid and believable, particularly if it's something that I am not familiar with. So I don't understand the case in where you wouldn't want to use reference. And if you don't have access to the internet, if you don't like referencing stuff from the internet, hard copy resources are still abundant. I've talked in my video about recommended books. I talk about visual reference books and what a great resource those can be. So that's something I'd like to talk a little bit more about in the future too, is to talk about how to use reference and how you can start with reference and kind of develop that into something that has a little bit more of your own voice. That'll be something for a later video. Can you give me advice on making YouTube videos? I'm probably the worst person to ask advice on making YouTube videos. There are lots of channels that focus and are specialized on helping you to make YouTube videos. And when I started making my YouTube videos, I didn't go to a fitness video. I didn't go to an art video. I didn't go to some specialized video about some other topic about how to make YouTube videos. I went to a channel about how to make YouTube videos. And there are lots and lots of great resources and channels on how specifically to make videos. So I'm not a good one to give advice on that. My production quality is actually not that great, and I'm just little by little trying to improve it. Like I said, I'm here to make art more than make really beautiful videos. Maybe once in a while I'll be able to come in and make a little bit more highly produced video, but my aim really isn't to be the king of YouTube. It's to use YouTube to help promote my work. All right. Here we go. Hi, Brandon. I'm a comic book artist in my 20s trying to start my own webcomic. Any advice for me artistically and personally? What advice would you give to your 20s self? The best thing I can say about that is just go back and watch a lot of my videos, because I think a lot of my videos are specifically addressing here's what my experience has been, here is what I've learned from it, and here's the advice that I might give to someone that's starting out. I think in general, I'm going to try to give a couple general suggestions that I think could be pretty powerful, helpful suggestions. First, I would say wherever you land, whatever opportunities you have, do them to the best of your ability and do them with pride. So you may want to be a comic book artist, but you may find work doing something else. I mean, that was my case. Initially I wanted to make movies, and I ended up working doing concept art. And that experience was the most beneficial to me when I put all my heart into it. So it could be very easy for you to say, I don't want to be doing this job because I want to make comics, so I'm not going to put all my heart into it. I'm not going to take pride in it. And you know what? If you don't do that and you're working a job, it's really easy to get depressed and kind of despondent working in that job. The other thing I would say is, and I've mentioned this in other videos, is really think about your lifestyle. If you make your lifestyle a big priority, it can really keep you from accomplishing your goals. So think very carefully about your monthly expenses, about how you pay your bills. And as an artist, the lower you can keep your expenses, the better chance you have of having the freedom to make your art. And that should be obvious why. I mean, the lower your monthly expenses are, the less work outside of doing comics you'll have to do to pay those bills. And some artists have been able to work part-time doing one thing and then been able to do their art the rest of the time because of being able to make that sacrifice. If you can live with family, live with family. If you've got rich parents, take advantage of that. So think very carefully about what your priorities are. And if lifestyle is important to you, then it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult for you to do that comic career. But if the comic career is really important to you, then think about lifestyle. Think of what you can sacrifice in your lifestyle, or what things you can be okay living without. And that can be really, really helpful in giving you that freedom and that space to be able to work on the work that's important to you. So let's see. I just want to be faster. I just want to be a faster artist so I can animate quicker. Any suggestions on the type of drill I should do? So after doing Sketchbook Summer this past year, I had some interesting insights on this exact question. So I ended up doing lots of gestures, and it kind of made me think about the process that we're normally taught in school on how to do gestures. And the normal way that we are taught is that you start with short gestures, like a 30-second to a minute gesture, and then you increase the time. You may do 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, then a 20-minute sitting, 10 to 20-minute sitting. After having worked on Sketchbook Summer, I did a lot of playing around with gestures, and I feel like we do that wrong, especially if you want to be a fast artist, which you're particularly asking about. I would recommend that you reverse that process, that you start by doing gestures, maybe not necessarily 10 minutes, but maybe do 5-minute gestures, and then slowly make the time shorter and shorter with each kind of segment you're doing. So maybe you're going to do 10 minutes and you do 2 5-minute gestures, or you can start with 1 10-minute gesture, then 2 5-minute gestures, then do a bunch of 2-minute gestures, and then end with minute or 30-second gestures. And so the idea is that the way that you learn to do something quickly is by first learning how to do it correctly, slowly. So it's the same principle that goes into learning a musical instrument, or learning a musical piece, or learning how to do some sort of physical skill. The usual way that you're going to want to do it is, you want to go through slowly, making sure you're getting everything accurate and you're doing everything really, really tightly. And then you slowly start to speed up. And what you'll find when you do that is when you get to those minute and 30-second gestures, that you're just going to be much more precise and things are going to be more accurate as you're going fast. And hopefully you'll have this nice blend of fluidity, but also some solidness to what you're doing. So that's my recommendation to learn to draw more quickly. Start slow, really focus on accuracy when you're starting slow, and really focus on design, making sure it looks beautiful, some nice shapes, good balance, and then slowly go faster and faster and see how much of those things you can retain. So try that out. Let me know how that works for you. All right. Do you know any artist illustrators who moved into the career late? I'm a 31-year-old who studied VFX for the last 3 years, but find I want to be more practical with my contribution to the entertainment industry by developing skills as a concept artist map painter. Yeah, I can tell you, I know of myself, I was someone that definitely started later in my career. I did concept art and I transitioned to doing comic books. And I was initially trying to do film, and then I transitioned to comic book, or then I transitioned to concept art, and then I transitioned to comic books. So my first comic book, I didn't even finish until 2009. And so that would have been, how old would I have been? I'm 40 now. It's 2018. 2018 minus 2009. Oh, my daughter was also born that year. So like 8 years. 9 years. 9 years. So about 9 years ago. So I would have been 31. So same age as you was when I did my first comic book. And I've just gotten better and better at it as I've gone. The one thing you have to be okay with, which is a really hard thing to wrap your head around when you're younger, is you have to be okay with being patient about the amount of time that it's going to take you to get there. So you're probably feeling right now, you kind of want to be that right now is what I'm guessing. You're saying, I'm a VFX artist right now, and I wish I could just be a concept artist right now. 31 years old. I mean, hopefully by the time I'm 32 or 33, I can just be like an amazing concept artist and doing all sorts of awesome stuff. The fact of the matter is, it may take you until you are 40 to be the concept artist you want to be. But let me just tell you from experience, being 40 myself right now, you're going to be 40 eventually. So do the work that's going to prepare you to be happy where you are professionally by the time you're 40. So you may take some patience, but absolutely you can start that new direction now. And the fact that you've already done VFX, you'll probably have some sort of basic understanding already that will help you start transitioning. Again, this does get into the other point, your lifestyle and the resources you have, depending on your lifestyle, can really make a difference. I mean, if you have flexibility, work flexibility, and flexibility through your expenses and your lifestyle, it'll make it easier for you to make that transition. Okay, how did you promote your comic? Well, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about advice on how to promote my comic because I'm still in the middle of it. I have now been working over 2 years making comics full time, and I've made absolutely zero money on Green Monk, which is the comic I've been working mostly on. So how do I promote my comic? This right now, what I'm doing is how I promote my comic. So if you haven't seen it, thegreenmonk.com, go check it out. Please read it. I hope you love it. I hope that when any theoretical, hypothetical announcements come in the near future about potential publishing forms of this book, that you go buy it. But yeah, I'm still in the process. So I'm trying to use social media. I'm trying to use YouTube. I'm putting it up there for free. Doing comic book conventions is going to be a much larger part of the equation once I actually have a finished book. I think that's a super important part. Meeting people in person, interacting with people can be a really, really powerful way to promote your work. So there's some ideas. That's kind of what I'm doing. Can't promise you it's going to do anything because I haven't really seen a lot of financial results from my promotion yet. All right. Have you ever considered working for DC or Marvel? Absolutely. I mean, I've been interested in making comics since I was like 12. So clearly when I was probably 12, I was very, very interested in making comics for DC and Marvel. It's still something I would be open to. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, like, if I were able to do a job for DC or Marvel, a lot more people would see my work and they would end up checking out Green Monk, I'm sure. So getting back to promotion, I don't think working for DC or Marvel is something long term I would want to do. I don't have like a real passion. Like, I really got to tell stories about DC or Marvel characters. Although I do have an idea for a Batman anthology that I think would be amazing. So I might, if I ever had a chance to pitch that to DC, I would totally do that. But other than that, I mean, I would mostly want to do it just for the exposure. I know that's kind of a bad word in art, but honestly, that's something that makes a difference, and I'm sure it would help me promote my personal work. So yeah, I'd be open to it. And let's see, this is the last question here. How did you get a job at Disney in the first place? I would really love to work there someday. This is the frustrating thing about working in art and working in just the entertainment art industry, is that the path to get there is never the same. It's always changing. So it's really hard for me to say, this is what I did. If you did the same thing, you would have good luck doing it. One of the confounding factors is that I got my first art jobs before the financial crash in 2008. And that, we just live in a different world since then. It's a different world. I think it's been harder for artists to start a career since that happened. I was really lucky that I got in. I got my foot in the door and I was able to start learning. But I think honestly, you have to be at a higher level of skill than I was when I got in to get a job. But the really unsexy, uninteresting answer is really that you need to start somewhere. So you need to start with an art job someplace. So you go to creativeheads.net or some other place and you try to get an artistic job, get some job where you're drawing. Hopefully there are still smaller studios, smaller companies where you can get your start, where you can start learning and growing as an artist and improving your portfolio. One of the things here is you ask, how can I work at Disney? As a reminder, I didn't work at Disney Feature. I worked at Disney Interactive, which doesn't exist anymore. So if you wanted to get a job there, you couldn't because it's not there. If you want to get a job at Disney Feature, you would have to be just an extremely good artist. You'd have to be one of the best artists out there. So that would take a lot of work. Not that it's not impossible, but a lot of those artists at Feature, they have worked at other places and kind of worked their way up. So I would expect to work your way up. If you wanted to be at Disney, I would expect to start someplace else. I think you would have to dedicate a very high amount of energy and focus to do that. You'd have to make creating your art a very high priority. You'd have to accept that you will be putting in lots of hard work for many, many years. But, and even then, it's a very small pool. So even if you are very, very highly skilled and a ninja at what you're doing, still might not be a right fit for you. And they still just might not need that extra artist. I mean, there's lots of people that want to work at Disney and be there. So it's very, very competitive. And I would be open to the idea that there may be other places that may be better suited for you to create your art, that may give you more freedom to create the art that you want to make. And I have some videos where I've discussed this before. I think this is something you should absolutely consider. And I do have some more that I'm working on that address this point in particular. So yeah, just consider, if you do want to work at Disney, accept that you'll have to sacrifice quite a bit to be able to get there, but also accept that even if you do sacrifice that, that's no guarantee, and consider that there could be other options that would fulfill you artistically. So that's what I found for myself. I'm clearly not at Disney anymore, and that's because I don't want to be there. I didn't want to be there, and I couldn't be happier than doing the work that I am doing right now. So anyway, that looks like that's all the questions for now. If you guys have any questions for the next Q&A, which I don't know when that's going to be, probably I'll do another one in February, but who knows what other work is going to come up. I don't think any will come up, so I'm really going to try to push to make some more YouTube stuff. But yeah, if you have any other questions, you can leave them in the comments. I try to save all the questions in a doc so I can answer these Q&As later. You can email me questions. You can send them over Twitter. You can even send them over, however you want to give them to me, Facebook, Instagram. There's all sorts of ways you could send me questions, but send me questions. I'll try to answer them. Like I said, I think I've got some really cool content coming up in the next couple weeks, so please stay tuned. We'll get started again for 2018. So anyway, guys, check out all my other videos. I've got a ton of other videos now, over 50 videos, a lot of great content in there. Spent all of last year working on them, so please dig in, check those out. I hope you like those. Please subscribe. Please like this video. And we'll talk to you next time.